I'm grateful for Federation's role as the City Hall of the Jewish community. Together with our partners, we are always actively working to combat anti-Semitism. But we all know that over the past few months, we've experienced a dramatic increase in anti-Semitism in our own community. And we know what happens when hate goes unchecked, so Federation is using security, education, and advocacy to combat that hatred. This panel's discussion is all about education and advocacy so that we can all understand and identify the overt and subtle anti-Semitism around us, and to learn what Federation, Hillel, and other Jewish organizations are doing, but also, and very importantly, what our civic leaders are doing and what each of us can do to curb the rising tide of anti-Semitism while promoting tolerance. Now I'll introduce our distinguished panel of experts. Adam Lehman is the president and CEO of Hillel International, the largest Jewish student organization in the world, with presence on more than 850 college and university campuses in the United States and 16 other countries. During his tenure, two of the pressing issues Hillel International is focused on is addressing how college students are impacted by the pandemic and the recent rise of anti-Semitism. Mayor Keith James, prior to becoming the mayor of West Palm Beach in 2019, he served on the City Commission for 8 years as the current Chief Executive Officer for the largest city in Palm Beach County. Mayor James has prioritized neighborhood initiatives, regional collaboration, and community partnerships, something we'll hear about more in a moment. Josephine Gahn is the Vice President of Jewish Federation's Jewish Community Relations Council, the advocacy and community relations arm of Federation. JCRC advocates for the Jewish people and Israel, builds connections with other faiths and ethnicities, creates unity among Jewish leaders and organizations, and fosters strong relationships with state and federal lawmakers. And our moderator is Michael Hoffman. He's president and CEO of one of the largest Jewish federations in the country. Since joining Federation in 2015, Michael is focused on strengthening Federation and its collaborative partnerships locally and in Israel, while also inspiring current and future leaders. During his time as CEO, our community has flourished and expanded, with demographic projections saying northern Palm Beach County could have as many as 200,000 people living in Jewish households just 3 years from now. And now it gives me great pleasure to pass the microphone to Michael. Michael?
Thank you, Beryl. Thank you, Beryl. Thank you, Lainey. Again, I want to congratulate Hope Silverman. As we're moving the podium off, Beryl talked about the importance of us connecting, engaging with future leadership and future donors. And I want to just express my appreciation to all of you as some of the most incredibly generous donors in our community. I also want to recognize some of our emerging leaders and donors. Participants in our Ben Gurion Society, our younger leaders who give $1,000 or more to the campaign, and the participants in the Emerging Leaders Program. If you can all please stand so we can thank all of you for your leadership and philanthropy. We have an incredibly bright future with these group of leaders and donors and activists committed to our community, just like all of you. If there's anything I learned from Hope Silverman when she was board chair during a little bit of a challenging time during COVID, is that always to be optimistic and always present things in the arena of strength and positivity. We're going to talk about the issues related to anti-Semitism and hatred, but I'm actually going to start where I'm going to end, is that as a community, as a federation, we are tackling this from a position of strength. We're tackling this from a position, as you will hear, because we have dedicated partners and leaders and activists with a great and incredible expertise that are committed to fight this fight, to address and combat anti-Semitism and hatred. And I want to start with Mayor James. And Mayor James, I want to thank you, because when some of the issues related to anti-Semitism started to rise when the swastika was projected onto the building. You were one of the first political leaders, elected officials to come out strongly against that. I want to thank you for your allyship and your support and your partnership with the Jewish community. So Mayor James, what did it mean to you when you saw the reports of a swastika that was projected on a building in downtown West Palm Beach in your city?
It hit me deep in the gut. Hatred in any form is scary. And I think that's what it was. This is 2023, and we're still fighting these same battles? Have we not learned from history? And that was kind of the reaction. And then there was anger. How dare they? How dare they, in my city, do such a thing? And there was frustration because we didn't have a lot of tools in the toolbox because of our First Amendment of our Constitution, which has made our country as great as it is, to combat the content. And so it was mixed emotion, but it started with anger, quite frankly, that there were those in our community who would dare do such a thing.
Can you tell us a little bit about your initial response as it relates to how law enforcement responded to these initial acts of anti-Semitism that was starting to hit our city pretty much several times a week?
Well, we certainly, on that particular incident, our officers did confront the gentlemen. They were driving a U-Haul trailer and refused to give their identity, so there wasn't much we could do in terms of arrest and that type of thing. But we've also, you all have been aware of other incidents of packets of anti-Semitic material being distributed in various neighborhoods and communities throughout the county and certainly within our city. And again, all we can do, and we have made some arrests for littering, but that is just a slap on the wrist considering the nature, I believe, of the crime against humanity is what it really is. And so there's a balance there. Clearly, the First Amendment allows people to have these nasty views and to express them, and we have to respect the First Amendment. But we're continuing to work to establish some tools that we can use to hopefully discourage these people from doing such a thing. But when you confront them, you publicize them, they just use that for fundraising to be able to expand their message. But we must not let it go unchallenged.
Great. Thank you, Mayor James. And we're going to delve into some of the legal challenges that we're pursuing and some of the legal challenges that we're facing as we all work to address anti-Semitism. Joe Gahn, can you please tell us a bit about what the response has been from our Jewish Community Relations Council when the most recent spate of anti-Semitism started to hit our community?
Yes, so I would like to first state that while our community was focused on these particular incidences, which are pamphleting and displaying hateful signs on buildings, I want us to be very clear, though, that to see it only as the work of these sort of white supremacist right-wing groups alone is to misjudge the situation and the nature of anti-Semitism that we're facing today. Yes, right-wing extremists, supremacists are part of the problem, no doubt, but they are not the only ones. We are dealing with a multitude of sources for anti-Semitism at the moment, and we are from black nationalists, Christian nationalists, Islamic, and far left progressive organizations whose anti-Semitism manifests itself in hatred of Israel. So we mustn't just see this as one source, and this is something that I, as JCRC, am determined to make clear, because for some in the community and certainly in the press, this is a new awakening. It came very close, it has come much closer. But we know that this has been going on for the last 12 to 15 years. Since for the last 12 years, anti-Semitic incidences have increased 300%. So we need to be very clear about what is actually going on, because each one of these groups reinforce one another. They use the same anti-Semitic canards and conspiracy theories that are adapted for today. You know, these are things you saw during Nazi Germany. They are absorbed by the anti-Israel crowd. They're absorbed by the right wing, who see this. They understand it, and they are only too eager to embrace those sort of incidences. So this is one element that we're all very focused on, but do not think for 1 minute this is the extent of it. And, you know, as we'll talk about, I guess the one element is easy to identify. It's the part where the anti-Israel hatred that manifests to such an extent where we're talking about the delegitimization of the State of Israel, where this is often manifest we see it in college campuses where our children and grandchildren attend, and they are feeling threatened and they are put upon as Jews. And we can talk about it more, but I'm sure Adam will also elucidate.
You make a great point, Joe, about the college campuses, and I can just tell you personally, my wife and I, our daughter's a freshman at University of Florida, very active in Hillel. Thank you very much. Go Gators. But she has experienced and witnessed anti-Semitism on the campus. Ye is right. They were tabling on the campuses of University of Florida, Florida Atlantic University, and I want to recognize Adam Collette, who's the executive director of Hillel, Broward, and Palm Beach County, Florida State University. So, Adam, can you tell us what's happening on the college campus and what Hillel is doing to help address and confront anti-Semitism on the campus?
Absolutely. Thank you for including us in this conversation, and thank you for giving a shout out to Adam Collette. At the end of the day, we have 1,200 committed professionals, and they are a huge part of what we'll talk about in terms of addressing anti-Semitism. Though with hope being honored, and with your point about optimism, I do want to speak to what I would call Dickensian, best of times, worst of times, for college students today when it comes to Jewish life. Let's start with the best of times. We will engage through Hillel more students this year than in our 100-year history. We're celebrating our centennial. We will have relationships with over 150,000 Jewish students who are going to actively engage in Israel engagement activities, in Jewish learning, in social events, in leadership development, in cross-community relationship building, you name it. So that's amazing. And that's something we should all be happy about and proud of. And candidly, kol kavod to all of you, because we only succeed in this work because of the partnership with our federations, with your leadership, with the Jewish Agency for Israel, and others. So that's the good side of this story, and it's real. The bad side is, your 300% number was interesting to me because we are tracking anti-Semitism and the way that demonizing anti-Zionism can translate into anti-Semitism in a very specific way. We're up 500% in 5 years. 500%. We will have more than 600 incidents this year, and they are going to be of a huge range. It's everything from, and I hate to say it, but the run-of-the-mill swastika in a bathroom, or even the Ye is Right campaign, and other campaigns that have made their way through Florida schools and others, onto things that are frankly a lot more serious, that are like straight on harassment, even in some cases rising to the level of actual physical assault or other issues of that nature. So what are we doing about it? First and foremost, and I was talking to one of our partner organizations, Students Supporting Israel, about this theme, the most important thing any of us can do is create compelling opportunities for Jewish students to feel great about being Jewish, to feel great about their relationship with Israel and all other aspects of Jewish life. That's job one. And as a community, I hope we never overlook that we can't just be the anti-Semitism community. Job one. Job two, as the mayor said, these are serious issues that are really troubling in this day and age. So number two, we have to respond aggressively. We at Hillel and at Hillel International have raised and deployed millions of dollars towards rapid response teams. And I don't want to scare people, but we are in regular contact with the FBI, with local security forces, to try to do everything we can to keep young people safe and young Jews safe. And that also means, going back to Joe's point, that when there is a BDS campaign or some other activity, even in cases where it may start from a place of academic discourse, when it devolves to campaigns that marginalize Jewish students, that isolate Jewish students, that make them feel bad about being Jewish, we have to fight back. So we're pushing on that as well. A couple of the things that we're focused on, we have something called the Campus Climate Initiative. We have to get our senior leaders of universities to be partners in addressing this work, because this is not only a Jewish issue, even when we're talking about anti-Semitism. This is an issue for campus climate, and I can happily report that we have more than 40 university leaders, including some in Florida, who are working hip to hip with us, going through an 18-month deep learning process, and more than learning, they're changing policy so that Jewish students' concerns are heard. And finally, student leadership. Our future, all of you will hopefully continue to invest with us in creating strong Jewish leaders for the future. We had 500 student leaders come together over the last 2 weeks at a summit in Boston and one in Los Angeles to learn about these issues and learn about how they could lead the way in addressing them. So those are some of the strategies we're addressing.
So you talk about sort of the role that Hillel plays is very similar to the role of a Jewish Community Relations Council on campus, in terms of you're working 24/7, 365 to sort of steward these relationships. Again, sounds very similar to what a JCRC does. Joe, can you talk about sort of what you've been doing to ensure that these relationships are ongoing and building and developing relationships when we get to the point when we have to confront these are relationships that are already in existence?
Right, exactly. That is really the essence of the Jewish Community Relations Council. It's a bit of a mouthful, and what does it mean? It means building relationships with the non-Jewish community, to build allies, to be an ally, to build on relationships that when the time comes, as it has been, and we see it with the mayor so wonderfully, and other entities in our community, with whether it's the security, the police, legislators, local leaders, and people of other clergy, of other denominations and groups who have all stood with us at this time. That is really the point, and that is the essence of it. It's also advocating with our legislators about issues of concern to the Jewish community, which go beyond anti-Semitism, of course, as well. But this is what it's about. And I think when we talk about anti-Semitism, it is really the only model that will have an impact. It is our best defense against it. You know, this is not an issue just for the Jews or any marginalized group that is a victim of hate. You know, this is an issue for America. This is an issue where we need everybody to stand up and say, no, not okay, which is what the mayor did, is to say, you know, we realize that this is a threat to our liberal democracy, and we need people to stand up. And that is exactly what we do. And part of it is also being engaged in our community, volunteering on behalf of and with other groups. That's JCRC.
We absolutely applaud that leadership that's taking place in our community. Mayor James, you've heard our two colleagues here say that addressing and combating hatred and anti-Semitism, it's not just the responsibility of the Jewish community, which I know you passionately agree with. You have been an incredibly strong advocate and upstander, some would say. What things needs to happen, do you believe, in the city sort of long term, in terms of things that we could be doing together to address hatred and anti-Semitism so it doesn't become sort of a more normalized undercurrent of our society?
Well, I think we have to immediately speak out. We can't hesitate. We can't allow it to become normalized. And that's why I issued my very strong statement within hours of learning of this activity occurring. But it brought to mind the 1946 poem from Martin Niemöller, who was a German theologian who was fighting against Nazism in the 30s, and I know you all have heard it, but it is so apropos. First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. That is very appropriate to this time. This is not just a Jewish problem. It is a national problem. It's a threat to our liberal democracy. Anti-Semitism is a symptom of a much deeper disease that is spreading throughout our country. And we must not be silent. No matter who we are, our ethnicity, our religion, at the end of the day, we're all Americans. We love this country. We know what this country has done for each and every one of us. So when this symptom rears its ugly head, we have to respond, and we have to respond immediately. We cannot be silent, because silent is a sin, and it normalizes this kind of behavior.
It's very powerful. And in the way into, so we're not silent, and we do eradicate this disease from our society. One of the most important ways that we're trying to do this is educating and engaging with our younger generations. And I'm very proud of the thriving partnership that we have with the Palm Beach County School District, which is working hard to implement the state mandate of Holocaust education in every single school throughout Palm Beach County. Joe, can you talk about sort of how this partnership is thriving and the things that we're doing together to address anti-Semitism and hatred in all of our public schools?
Yeah, so it occurred to me when the mayor said, you're standing up to it. It's being an upstander. And when we teach the Holocaust in schools, what we're doing is we're not just teaching it as history and the consequence of where hate can lead, but also we want the lesson of being an upstander, to stand up against this. And, so much education has to take place and does take place in the school district. And we are very fortunate to have a very close relationship with the Palm Beach County School District. This arose out of an incident. This wasn't out of nowhere, but it has led to a relationship where we have a joint task force with the school district of us and a number of organizations that are engaged in Holocaust education to make sure that the Holocaust is taught the best way possible in the school district. And they are really doing a very good job, and they were very open to it, and they take it very seriously. They also take very seriously fighting anti-Semitism in the schools. So while we're working together with them, and we're working with, for example, Insight Through Education, we were pleased to help bring the Shadow Light exhibit, the boxcar, to our community. We engage with them, I do very regularly, around anti-Semitic incidences in schools. And they are very serious about this. The trouble, of course, though, is that they can't control the home environment, where so much of this is coming from. Social media, kids on gaming platforms where anti-Semitic imagery and stories are legion. These are areas, and then of course you have, famous people tweeting and elevating this message. This is a real challenge, and they can deal with events in the school, but they can't deal with things at home. So this is a really big challenge. And, we're doing what we can to educate. I have, spoken to many, many administrators and principals about the nature of anti-Semitism, and not just the stuff we all see and know, but the deeper stuff as well. So it's a really good partnership.
At least the governor is allowing you to teach that history.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
It's a good point. It's a good point. He makes a good point. I'm not going to lie. It's true. Anyway, we talk about the importance of working as part of coalitions. And again, we're very fortunate at our federation that we have such incredible partnerships with other Jewish organizations in our community. You talked about Insight Through Education. We partner with the American Jewish Committee, the Anti-Defamation League in the state of Florida. Moving on to the college campus, we try really hard as a local community to start the effort of advocacy and education of our youth much earlier, in the middle school and the high school. And we significantly ramp up our efforts to provide that level of leadership development and training. But clearly, the thousands and thousands of Jewish kids going onto the college campus, they're still not as prepared as we would all like them to be. Adam, tell us what's happening on the college campus in terms of what you're doing to prepare and train your student leaders so they can effectively address anti-Semitism and anti-Israel sentiment on the campus.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I want to actually pick up on a theme that both of the other panelists have already talked about, which is the strategy of relationship building across campus. So we are actually training student leaders so they are well positioned to do outreach to other communities. As one example, on the other side of the state where your daughter's attending, they ran a campaign after a recent anti-Semitic incident, spread cream cheese, not hate, right? That worked. They gave out bagels for free, but beyond the bagels, they actually engaged about 5,000 non-Jewish students in dialogue around the nature of anti-Semitism. They had them ultimately sign a petition. They had them follow up in a class. So creating those pathways in terms of relationship building has been very important. As a second example, I'm looking at our Senior Vice President, Tim Cohen, who was critical in helping to architect a program that brings non-Jewish student leaders to Israel. So we had 100 buses last year of non-Jewish student leaders, Black Student Association leaders, Latino, LGBTQ, and others coming and really getting a firsthand view of what's happening across really that whole region and coming back. And then finally, we do believe in education. And so while, of course, we want to fight back and speak out when a Jewish community on campus is dealing with an issue, we want to educate. And I talk about educating administrators, but it's also about educating peers. And so we'll continue to build out curriculum so that, for example, on every Florida campus, students have the opportunity to learn more. And this is, by the way, a huge issue. You could talk to a 19-year-old who actually is facing what we would all recognize as a clear anti-Semitic trope. They may not even know what they're hearing. And so we're spending time trying to make sure they understand the issues they're facing. One other example that's local, I was here last week in Coral Gables at University of Miami. We had Noah Tishby. And so bringing speakers, scholars, others who can really not only educate but inspire our young people, those are all part of the formula here.
Adam, I think it's so moving that you took so many of those non-Jewish students to Israel so we can all, participate in that fight together to combat anti-Israel sentiment on the campus. Mayor James, you were in Israel. It was probably almost about a year ago now, and I think I happened to bump into you at an event we were at together. It was like the day after you had come back from your trip. And your level of excitement and everything that you had took from this trip, it was wonderful to watch it in your eyes. Tell us how that trip had an impact on you, that trip to Israel. Tell us how it's informed sort of your perspective, not just of Israel, but the importance of sort of building strong relations with the Jewish community as well as combating hatred.
It was life-changing in a word. I thought I knew. I had Jewish friends, high school and college. And I thought I knew the story of Israel and the Jewish. The major takeaway I got, and it came from my visit to the Holocaust Museum. Yeah. I was not aware, and forgive me for being ignorant, of how the Jews had been persecuted pre-Holocaust. Every European country where Jews found themselves, they were under attack, whether it's being put into ghettos, hunger programs that they were put. To me, that was just how do human beings do that to each other? But what it does is it highlights the hunger for having a country that they can call their own, because every other place they've gone, they've lived in, they have been persecuted. Again, this is pre-Holocaust, and I didn't know how deeply that story ran, and so it helped me to understand why you are here today, why Israel is so important, because you need your homeland, a place where you can call home, you can feel safe and secure. Being the mayor being the mayor of a city, I often say that public safety is job one. When I was in Israel, I realized that national safety is the major job. You're surrounded by your enemies. Israel is literally surrounded by its enemies, and we visited a kibbutz, and some of the lessons I learned there. But at any moment in time, the country can be subject to violence, shelling, or whatever. And so that was the major takeaway. I have to say that I went over there kind of looking through the Israel community through my American eyes and social justice and trying to impose American values, civil liberties, etc., on a country that is literally just trying to stay alive. It's just trying to keep its people alive. So you can't necessarily impose our American values from a country where we've been free, relatively free, on a country that literally is surrounded by its enemies and at any point in time can be subject to violent attacks for no reason other than the fact that they're Jewish. And so that was very eye-opening for me. How did it inform the work that I do now? It just reinforces the need to speak out. When you see something, say something. But being a black American, I already knew that. I've lived through racism myself, and so, which is probably another reason that I was reacted so emotionally when I was learned of the swastika being displayed on a building. We share, as African Americans and Jews, we share a lot more than our differences are, and I hope we return to the days of the 60s where we were standing shoulder to shoulder and join together in some of these fights. Because as the poem says, if they're coming after you, they're coming after us, right? And at the end of the day, and so we need to speak up for each other.
Thank you for taking that journey, and thank you for sort of having, coming back sort of with that perspective on how it sort of brings us together even more than what, again, you have always been such a close partner and advocate on behalf of all communities. Joe, the anti-Israel narrative seems to be sort of now embedded in the anti-Semitic sort of narrative. Can you kind of tell us sort of why you think that's been happening and how we're trying to combat that?
Look, this is the tough one. We all can understand the swastika, that we all get. That's not normalizing anti-Semitism. Most people are repulsed by these acts and by these people who perpetrate them. The real problem that is normalizing it is the anti-Israel, anti-Zionist anti-Semitism. I'm not talking about the criticism of Israel that everybody apparently has an opinion on. I'm talking about the delegitimization of Israel to the purpose of its elimination. And that is really what motivates the boycott, divestments, and sanctions movement. This is a part that not many people really appreciate. They use the same imagery, they use the same language about Jews controlling the world. As I said earlier, the same canards are used by these groups as are used by the far-right extremists. They're adopted by Islamist extremists. They see it and they know exactly. They can identify anti-Semitism like that, and they see it in this group. This is the real danger here. Is it's addressed to Israel, the collective, the Jewish collective, the nation state of the Jewish people, the only one in the world, and what's so venal about it is that it's subtle and it's smart, but it's also very widely planned and funded, and it finds particular favor in universities, which are progressive environments. A lot of it comes out of university theories, and it finds a haven. And what it says is it equates Zionists with Jew. You can be or not be a Zionist, but if you are anti-Zionist, you are anti-Israel's right to exist as a homeland for the Jewish people. And this is what is so sad, because certainly on university campuses, it's a progressive environment. A lot of students are attracted to that. And there are universities, and maybe you can enlighten us as to how wide a problem this really is, because the perception is it's everywhere, and I'm not sure that's the case. But there are Jewish students who are excluded from activities, progressive activities, unless they actively denounce their Zionism. And we know that 70 to 80% of Jews identify with Israel. So you have this situation where, you want our kids to be connected to Israel. The best way to do it is to go to Israel. And then they come back, and that makes them the best advocates we could possibly have, but sometimes they step back because it's a very hostile environment.
I mean, Adam, we're seeing on some of the college campuses, there is a high degree of intimidation taking place. What are you doing, what is Hillel doing on the college campuses to ensure that we are moving even more aggressively to instill a sense of Jewish pride? And so they're not going into hiding, and they're expressing their Jewish pride even louder and stronger than they even were before.
Yeah, and it's a great question, and I first want to underscore, even answer the question Joe raised. On the one hand, the anecdotes we sometimes hear about Jewish students being excluded, whether it's from a social organization or facing an academic penalty because they're perceived as being Zionist or, God forbid, Jewish, right? On the one hand, the really explicit incidents are much more patchwork, but what is not patchwork is the experience of Jewish students. And the polling data we have, and we've done a lot of survey work lately, shows that upwards of 50% of students are afraid to express their Zionism because they do realize there very well could be that consequence of being downgraded in a class, excluded from an a cappella group, or worse, again, marginalized even within their own dormitories. We have really hard stories of students who had to transfer out of a school because they felt so marginalized or bullied within a living situation. In terms of, as you said, what we're doing, it's what I said earlier. If we create opportunities to excite and inspire young Jews, then we will succeed. And that's what we're doing and investing in every day. That's why people like Adam Collette and our other 1,200 professionals, I mean, I cannot tell you how amazing those people are and how hard they are working. They are getting up, spending 20 hours a day in a lot of cases, just being creative. By the way, that's half the battle, right? We have to understand Gen Z. We spend a lot of time, and it's not what I would necessarily think is, the most exciting thing Jewishly or what you may. But if we create opportunities for them to define their own path, we all know there's a majesty of Jewish wisdom, practice, and community. So that's it. That's what we do. And candidly, for all of us, investing in the opportunities and investing in the professionals to create those opportunities, we do that, we'll succeed.
Thank you, Adam. I want to shift back a little bit to the relationships and to some of the different legal challenges that we're trying to overcome. On March 14th, the Palm Beach County Commissioners will vote on whether to adopt an ordinance that will prohibit the projection of anything onto a building without permission of the building owner. And of course, this is directly related to the swastika that was projected onto the AT&T building here in West Palm Beach. Mayor James, if the ordinance in all 38 municipalities in Palm Beach County, if it's adopted, and it would be an opt, Joe, correct me here.
It's going to be opt-in.
An opt-in. What's going to be the position of West Palm Beach?
I'm ahead of them. Tomorrow at our city commission meeting, we will be passing I assume it will pass. We will certainly be considering on first reading the very same ordinance where it will be illegal to project any image. We can't get into content, but any image on the building without the building owner's consent. So that's March 6th. We're not waiting on the county. And then 2 weeks later, we'll be up for final adoption. But that's something that is already in the works. We'll be considering that at tomorrow evening's city commission meeting. It's not a perfect solution, but it's an additional tool in our toolbox, and we're struggling to get as many tools in the toolbox as possible. Again, as I mentioned before, it's the balance of the First Amendment rights versus outlawing this kind of anti-Semitic behavior. So we have to listen to the lawyers. But yeah, that's one step that we're taking, and we're taking that step tomorrow.
That's good.
And thank you, Mayor James, for your extraordinary leadership. is moving so aggressively to sort of address these issues of hatred and anti-Semitism. So as we go to the last round of questions, I kind of, in the spirit of sort of pursuing optimism and hope for all of our communities, Mayor James, I start with you. What is your vision for the city of West Palm Beach so we can celebrate diversity and tolerance and civility in our wonderful and thriving West Palm Beach community?
Well, the vision that I've articulated even when I was campaigning for my first election, and by the way, I just got reelected to another 4 years without opposition, by the way, is to make West Palm Beach a community of opportunity for all. Which goes right into what we're talking about here. I want to make sure that every little boy and girl, man and woman, no matter ethnicity, no matter their zip code of residence, find something in our city to which they can hitch their wagon to, their dreams to, and realize their dreams in our city. And the way to do that is certainly to create an environment of inclusivity, of diversity, and so we have to continue to be a welcoming city. I know that term has certain connotations in certain circles, but welcoming in terms of people who are of different stripes feel that there's something in our city that they can find to realize their dreams. And it's aspirational, but it's something that keeps me up at night to make sure that we're doing everything we can as a city to create that environment, whether it's inside City Hall or outside City Hall, in our city. So that's a vision that moves me and motivates me each and every day.
Really inspirational. Adam, on the college campus, what's your aspiration to ensure that we are continuing to celebrate Jewish life, that we are being inclusive, and again, as a broader Jewish community, that we're able to sort of find ways to eradicate hatred and anti-Semitism on the college campus?
Yeah, I mean, my aspiration and our vision is to have every Jewish student inspired by the opportunities that Jewish life provides them. And we're, well on our way, but we need to partner with you and others to make sure we get to that point. But we also want to make Hillel and make the Jewish community a place that adds value for all students in all communities, and we have that opportunity. And I will tell you, we've talked about a lot of challenging issues, but there's so much to be hopeful about. If you want a dose of hope, please go to a Hillel. Could be down the road, for out in Palm Beach at FIU, it can be at Miami, UCF, Florida State, UF, doesn't matter. Go to an event. I swear to God, you will come out with a smile on your face and joy in your heart when you see the young people who are there, when they give you optimism around their capacity to be resilient and to lead the Jewish community going forward. And it only happens with your support, with the leadership. We've got our board chair, Skip Vicness, amazing lay leaders like you have here in Palm Beach who partner to pursue the work. But we'll succeed in this vision. The Jewish people have been around a long time. We're a strong people. We're people that don't give up. And again, if we partner together, we will succeed.
Joe, what's our vision for our Jewish Community Relations Council?
So it's clear that this is the model. This is what we need to do more of. Want to educate people more about what we as Jews are about, that we're not just this group that is persecuted endlessly, the richness of Judaism, but also, of course, about the nature of anti-Semitism. I want more people to become advocates. I want more people to make friends in the community and be engaged in the community. Volunteer with our Jewish community, Jewish Volunteer Center. Be engaged. Contact your leadership. You all have the power to do things. I want to see everybody engaged in Jewish Community Relations Council. That's my vision.
Great. Thank you, Joe. So clearly we are sitting here with a panel with three incredible partners and leaders who are as strongly committed to combating anti-Semitism as we will ever hear. And I want to thank them for their leadership, for their conviction, for their resilience to ensure that we're all working together to eradicate hatred and anti-Semitism. So I want to thank the three of you. I'm listening to this conversation and I'm reminded by some comments that Deborah Lipset spoke to our community a couple of years ago. She's now the special envoy to combat anti-Semitism and hatred with the U.S. State Department. And in her remarks, she said, "Don't let anti-Semitism take over your life." Adam talked about it. We've heard it sort of a couple different places. We live in one of the most thriving Jewish communities in North America. Just today, at the Mandel JCC up in Palm Beach Gardens and in Boynton Beach, there was two big forums, I should say, in both locations. About over 1,500 families and young children came together to celebrate Jewish life. That's our obligation. That's our opportunity. That's what ultimately will eradicate hatred and anti-Semitism if we celebrate everything this community has to offer. Thank you all for your leadership, and thank you all for joining us this evening. Have a good night.